Okay, and welcome back to another video on liquidity. So in this video, what I want to introduce is the idea of staff members. So one of the things you may have noticed in the previous video is that after a while, we started to get bombarded with requests for loans. And that's fine to start with. It's a sort of interesting part of learning how the game works, but very quickly that's going to get annoying. So what we have in the game is members of staff, so you can delegate certain functions to them. So once you sort of have a feel for how loans work, the idea would be you'd employ a member of staff to make the decisions for you, and then your job would just be to keep track of their performance and make sure that the parameters of the loan are appropriate given the prevailing rates in the market. So I've set up a personal loan here, and let's run time forward a bit. And we'll get a couple of normal loan requests. So this is the sort of thing we saw last time. So let's approve this one. And then we'll do the same again. So another person. And so on. So if you run the game at a relatively high speed, you're going to be bombarded with these requests. So instead of this, let's now hire some members of staff to do this for us, or a member of staff. So on our programs menu, we've got personnel here. And this is a new window we haven't talked about so far. So there's a few different components here. There's the staff. This is our, the current staff we have and their performance. We'll see that in a little bit. And then there's things such as payroll, how much money it costs to employ them, and just a general overview of what's going on with our staff. So to hire a member of staff, it's a little bit more complicated than most other games. Basically, what we need to do is we need to place an advert for the role and set the salary, and then look at the applicants and make a decision for who we want to hire. And then finally, they'll be joining our team. So let's place an advert, and we want to hire a loans officer. Currently in the game, there are two options. There's loan officers and equity traders. So equity traders are stock traders. We do not have, in this current playthrough, we haven't unlocked the stock trading aspect of the game, and we haven't discussed it yet in these videos. So we're just going to stick to a loan officer now. And we also haven't unlocked mortgages. So we're just going to have this officer just cover personal loans. We can move them between desks later. So desk is just a way to describe an area. It's like a literal desk they'll sit on for personal loans and mortgages. But in our case, we want a loans officer for mortgages. The default salary is $45,000 per year, so we're just gonna leave that. Okay, and there they are, the adverts there. And if you look at reports, we see you've got one open advert, and that's it. So as with other aspects of the game, the key is how we control speed. So let's move time forwards a little bit, and we can just, for the time being, deactivate our personal loan product. You'll notice if the product is not activated, it doesn't show up by default. You have to click this button here to show inactive product. So an inactive product means, in the case of a personal loan, we will not be making any more loans. It's not deleted because we still have customers who have these products, so we can't delete it. You can only delete a product once we have no customers associated with it. So we can easily just reactivate it by clicking on this button. Anyway, that allows us just to run time forward without getting interrupted. So let's do that until we get some applicants come through. So in our case, we had a window of 2 days. The longer you leave the advert open for, the more applicants you get. The more applicants you get, the better chance you have of getting good ones. So here's our first applicant. Let's run time back at 1x now. So we've still got 3 more applicants to come in, but let's have a look at this one. This is David Crawford. So we can either look at their CV, make an offer, or decline. So let's look at their CV. So it comes through in a sort of mid-90s MS Word format. It looks like you can edit these and press these buttons, but it's all just aesthetic. So here we are. We get a little bit of flavor text. We get an address, which is not real. We get a telephone number, which is not real. And then we have some information about them. So we have their employment history, and then we have their education. So you notice, we're in 1995, so these degrees are going to be in the 1980s, 1970s, and so on. So, how do you know whether or not this is a good candidate? Well, we don't off the top of our heads. There's no information here which is going to tell us how good this candidate is going to be at performing their role. So we have to infer some of the information indirectly. So the way we would do this is, let's first look at their education. So they've gone to the University of Calderport, and they went to St Cuthbert's College. So it's in the UK that the college, which you can refer to the upper 2 years, the final 2 years of high school. So let's have a look. So if you go to the bank summary, the bank manual, there are pages on universities and schools. So we can just use the search function, and let's put in universities. So these are not real universities. Just to be clear, we try to live in a world which is not the real world. So we won't have any real names of regions or countries or companies and so on, as to the best of our ability. And that's true for universities. So what we do have, though, is a league table. So at the top, we have Wexbridge University, which is sort of, you can consider equivalent to, say, Oxford or Cambridge. And then we have the rest of the rankings. So this is quite a handy tool just to get an idea of the university they went to. So they went to University of Calderport, which is number 5 on the rankings. You're notice we don't have all the rankings here. We just have 67 for the time being, so that will get populated in the future. But that tells you this person went to a pretty good university. 2-1. So again, you have to be familiar with the UK system of grading for now. We may switch that over to GPA or something like that in the future. And so that's relatively encouraging. Let's have a look at schools then, independent schools. So we won't go into all of the details of this. There's no league table here, but the idea here is that you could imagine that there's a sort of wide range of just state schools, what you call in the US public schools, and then independent schools. These are fee-paying schools, or in the US you would call them private schools. And what you see here is that these prestigious schools, so these are high schools, secondary schools, senior schools, and we see that St Cuthbert's College is on there. So this is a prestigious school. So this tells you this candidate's probably got a good education. Then let's have a look at institutions and banks, rival banks. So you put bank in, rival banks, you'll see some of the other banks. So you don't immediately get a feel for how, there's no league table for banks as there is for universities, but it can tell you a little bit about what these banks are strong in. So, for example, this candidate most recently has been working for Northgate Bank. So let's see if we can find them. Northgate Bank. So what do? They're a solid regional clearer, bread and butter lending. So they're active in lending, and they don't really participate in financial markets. So we're hiring loans officer. So that seems like a good fit. You can do the same for the other banks. So I think this is probably a reasonably good candidate. Let's make an offer just for the sake of it. We're not going to wait for the other candidates to come in. So you can close the CV if you want to make an offer here, or you can make an offer directly from here. So let's make an offer and see what happens. You can always use Nigel to give you a feel for what's happened. So Nigel says your first hire, David Crawford handles the request, so you don't have to. So let's have a look at staff, and there he is, David Crawford. There's his little picture, and there's his salary. So far we have no idea how he's performing, and we don't have any of these statistics. But this is the sort of the key aspect of this, is that you're not going to be told what his statistics are. So the statistics which matter internally to the game would be, for example, making decisions on the expected value of a loan. So a loan to a customer which is a sort of an A-rated customer would have a higher value than someone who's triple C, for example. So the better loans officers will be able to make a better decision on what's a good loan and what's not, and be able to in general give you loans that appear on your book at a higher value, because of course, as we talked about previously, every time you make a loan it appears on your book, but there is a factor that's applied to it basically accounts for the probability of the customer defaulting, i.e. not paying, and that has to be taken into account when you're valuing the loan. So if you make a $10,000 loan to two different customers, one is an A-rated, has an A credit rating, and the other has a C credit rating, the one with the A credit rating is going to appear on the books as a higher number because it has a higher probability of us getting all of our money back. So that's a really important component. Another thing which matters is the speed at which they respond to the customer. So if they respond quickly, then that improves our reputation, and it also means less likely to ignore the request. So let's see what happens then if we run times forward a bit. We'll ignore the rest of the applications and just see how these loans progress. So currently we have 3 customers which we've offered loans to who have taken out loans manually, but let's see what happens with our staff member now. So this is the end of the day, and we'll just keep track of this. So as with normal loans that we cover ourselves, they'll come in infrequently, but nonetheless they should now get taken care of automatically by David. So I ran time forwards for a bit there and didn't get any loans, and the reason for that is, of course, that I forgot to reactivate this. So let's activate this loan, and now let's run time forwards, and hopefully we'll start to see this number increase as David makes some loans. So there we go, he's made a loan. And you will see his stats appear here. They don't appear automatically because it takes time for the information to feed through to our sort of staff management system. But over time, you will start to see how many loans David has made. So as it is now, he's missed 0%. So these are ones that he's not made, and the default rate is 0. So that's a very long-term measure of performance. It tells you how many times customers have defaulted, either decided they're unable to make the repayments based on loans that he has made, and then the approval rate. So this again is quite a useful metric. If the number's too high, perceived to be too high, he's making too many loans, then that might maybe an indicator that he's not doing his job particularly well. But there you go, that's basically it for loans officers. You can just run this in the background now. You have to make the decision, of course, is this worth it? Because now we have payroll as well. So daily, we actually have to pay $126 per day for David's salary. And that's a non-negligible amount of money if you compare it to the amount of money that we're getting in interest from our loans. So it makes more sense as you start to lend more money and have bigger loans. And we'll talk about that in the future. That's one of the unlocks. But it's a good way to progress the game and allow yourself to focus on other things. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. And then in the future, the next video, we're going to talk about markets and stock trading. Okay, I'll see you then.